City Council, Monday, November 20th. It is now 6 p.m. Um, Darlene, could you do the roll call, please?
Sure. Councilmember Cervantes?
Here.
Councilmember Manley? Here. Councilmember Molina? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Hewitt?
Here.
Mayor Davis?
I'm here. And we have City Manager Cobo. City Attorney is on the road and stuck in traffic. He will be here. City Clerk Gertis, Finance Director Reed, Planning Director Lucia. Not here. Pardon me?
She's ill.
Oh, well, hopefully she gets better. Public Works Associate Engineer, big title. Shakar. City Engineer Thornton, Fire Chief O'Connell, and Sheriff Captain Peterson. Captain, you want to lead us in the pledge, please?
Okay. All right, can I have everybody stand? Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
And let it be shown that our attorney has walked in the door and he's just got a big smile after fighting traffic from the other side of the world. Communications from the public. I have two here. Howard Reeves.
Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, my name is Howard Reeves. I live at 1017 Douglas Street in Calamasa. The reason I'm here tonight, I want to give a shout out to the city on the state of the city situation. I thought having that on Saturday was an excellent idea because people could, they didn't have to, they were off work, they could come and they could enjoy and have a great event. I thought that really went over well. And I think Will over here will agree with me that the trunk and treat was a big success. I know you were there, Bill, so you saw it. And, but that was outstanding that put on, and that showed that housing development out there, that what we can actually do for them and their families, so I was really pleased with that. And also, last Friday night, the Family Services area, with the city's support, put on a Thanksgiving dinner. John, where were you? Jeff, where were you? Bill, where were you? Linda and Wendy showed up and got to meet all of us seniors. So, but anyhow, that was outstanding. I thought, I don't know what you ladies think, but
Well, the food was good.
now, the food was really good. I was really pleased with that. And I thought the staff that put all that on hustled everything around, picked everything up, did a lot of great stuff. The music was good. And so I want to congratulate the city staff for all, and the Family Services for all the things that they've done on those three events. I think it's important that these things keep going on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Blake Ferris.
Hi, my name is Blake Ferris. I just wanted to come say thank you guys, City Council, City Manager, City Clerk, all the city staff. I just want to say thank you guys. You know, there's a lot of behind the scenes that we don't see as residents, and just want to say thank you for all the work, all the public services, and just happy holidays.
Oh, thank you. That's appreciated. I know the staff really appreciates it. Heather?
Hi, my name is Heather Carruthers, and I just want to like this gentleman, thank you all. This was my first time, the last meeting for your first city council. I've been involved in many city councils in several states. My first problem, I would say, although I loved everything, is that public comments come at the first. And I've always seen them come at the last because after the agenda, which doesn't really explain everything in the agenda, what everything's about, and then afterwards, of course, I had a lot of questions, and I know y'all had something else to do afterwards, so you couldn't really hang out and talk to us. But I really feel like public comments need to come at the end because that's where the questions come in once we get the details of what's on the agenda. And I just loved the mayor and the story of the frogs. So I was so enlightened by that, but the fact that it wasn't in the agenda that it was going to be $1.3 million, that is not right. And I think it's pretty clear that God's going to take care of those things. He promises to take care of the sparrow. He dresses the lilies of the field. We don't need to spend $1.3 million on this. If we had kept on this kind of path, then we'd still be walking with dinosaurs. So let nature do what nature does. And that's just how I feel about that. And I'm just so grateful and excited to hear about our businesses that are going to be involved in this Christmas thing, and I'm just very excited to hear about that. I had a lot of questions, and I also wanted to be helpful to help go to these businesses. I lived here for 25 years before I moved to Arkansas for 12 years. I grew up in Texas, and but I know a lot of people here, and a lot of these small businesses that know me, and I just wanted to help, and I didn't know who to reach out to say, hey, I can go to this nail salon and that restaurant, and I mean, they all know who I am. And y'all are going to know who I am because I'm going to come to every meeting that I can. And again, I just love Mayor Bill. That was my dad's name and my favorite first dog's name. So I just appreciate your time, and I really thank Ms. Darlene for helping us with our mobile home park issues and the affordable housing and keeping that in check. It is, 50, I'm 59. 59 is not what it used to be. So we've got 80-year-olds out there just jamming it. So, but they're doing the best they can on a very limited income. And my
Okay,
Social
well, thank you very
Security.
much for joining us.
Thank you, and I appreciate y'all so much, all of you.
Approval of the agenda, consent calendar, and waiver of full readings of the ordinances. Can I get the motion?
I'll move that we approve the agenda and the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that would be 504. Okay. Does anybody want to approve or pull anything on the consent calendar, or? Okay, we'll move right on then. Business items. I don't want to talk to the Chamber of Commerce. Tony, they got you at the bottom of the page. I almost skipped you.
Almost got away with it, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share what's going on with our Calumet Chamber. We had our breakfast meeting in November. It was well attended. We had several here that attended the meeting. I was glad to see you guys there, Will and Wendy and Linda. The guest speaker was Maria Serret from Southern California Edison. She hit on quite a few topics. One of them that grasped my interest was, of course, the units for charging electric vehicles in places that can possibly maintain or have spots like that. So it's piqued my interest. So Will had to bring me back down to earth that Calamasa City still has their grip on it. But it was a very good and informative meeting. Our next meeting, breakfast meeting, will be on December 12th at 7:30 a.m. The location for the breakfast is still going to be determined because our guest speaker will be Rosalisi Ochoa Bo, and so we want to accommodate for a larger crowd if we have to. So check the website for updates on where that breakfast meeting will be. Recent events, of course, for those of you that attended October 21st, we had our scholarship fundraiser, and that was the night of the races at the Plantation on the Lakes in their clubhouse. It was well attended. We were able to raise more than $3,000, which will be given away to worthy students that apply for scholarships through the chamber. Again, thank you for those who attended, and of course our event sponsors out there that gave extraordinary for the sponsorship of the event. Upcoming events, of course, are is the big Get Your Lights On Christmas Parade, Calamasa Christmas Parade. It's December 2nd, Saturday, starts at 5 o'clock, Calamasa Boulevard. It's from Avenue K to Myrtlewood. I've been working with different entities in the city for planning on this. Danae's been spending time with folks at the city with planning. I've been unable to attend every meeting she's scheduled. So, but she has given me assignments, which I've followed through with. So we're really excited about having this parade again. It's been a great success for the city, and we look forward to another successful parade this year. Currently, we have over 40 entries, and we actually have a marching band this year,
Really?
which is excited. We have equestrian riders, and that's car clubs, and of course the city and the fire department's involvement, and so it just sounds like it's just going to be a wonderful event again. The last thing I wanted to mention was the hosting of our installation and the community awards dinner. That's going to be January 25th. I believe it's a Thursday evening. That location still has to be determined due to scheduling conflicts with a couple of facilities that we've already been in contact with. So, do you have any questions for me on? No? We've signed 2 new members this month. We had 11 membership renewals, and our total membership now stands at 135.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Tony, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Are you still handing out the new resident fee?
Yes, we are. Yeah, on a quarterly basis. Yeah, so any businesses that, chamber businesses or non-chamber businesses that want to get information into those homeowner gift bags, you know, we set up routes on those new homeowner gift bags. We have like 5 or 6 different routes, and 2 people take one route at a time and deliver the bags. I like to try to you know, not just leave them at the door, but to come in contact with the new residents to let them know that we're out there and that, you know, we're trying to. The whole concept of the new homeowner gift bags is to get people to shop in Calamasa instead of, you know, if they've moved into Calamasa from somewhere close by, they jump on the freeway and go back to what they're familiar with. So we're trying to get them to exchange that back to find something new, find something right here in your neighborhood. There's plenty of businesses that want to serve them. So that's the new homeowner gift bag program.
And might I mention Heather, if you want to get more involved with that.
So yeah, Heather, you can stop by the chamber office and visit with Donna. She'll put you to work. Donna. Anything else? No? Great. I'll see you guys on December 12th, right? For the Calamasa Lions Club Christmas party.
We'll see you on the 1st and the 2nd.
Oh, the
and
2nd?
12th.
Yeah, like the 1st, the 2nd, the 12th. You come by the house on the 25th?
Thank you, Tony. Okay, business items. Status report regarding Calamasa Senior Nutrition Program.
That report will be given by our Deputy City Manager, Darlene Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. We're bringing this item to you tonight to update you on our senior nutrition program here at the center. Family Services Association, in conjunction with the Department of Aging, has provided nutrition services to the city since 2006, serving congregate lunch meals daily here at the center. Attendance of the meals fluctuated from year to year. However, just prior to COVID, the numbers participating in the congregate meals were low. As a result of the COVID-19 virus and consistent with state and county recommended guidelines, the city offices were closed to the public. That means the senior center was closed to the public. And the senior meal program did continue, but we had to do it in a different manner. So the senior meal program quickly transformed into a weekly senior meal distribution program. And under this program, meal packages consisting of 5 frozen meals, which are nutritionally balanced for senior citizens, half-gallon of milk, bread, and fruit are distributed to individuals aged 60 and above with no residency restrictions and no cost to those residents. On March 18th, 2020, FSA had approximately 70 participants in those meals, and that number grew to approximately 150 participants per week. So that was a little more than FSA had money for. So they sent us a letter, let us know, and yet the funding from the state was winding down, and if we wanted to continue to provide those meals for all of those people, the city would have to put some money towards that. So we did bring a report to you in September of 2020, and we had, at that time, Bonnie spoke to you regarding the CARES Act funding that was available, and you guys approved for us to use $19,250 towards those meals, so that we would not, so we could still do 150 meals. We never received invoices from FSA, and I'm not really sure why. So they continued to give to our 150 people or more, but we never were billed for those. So I'm not sure why that happened. These meals have been such a success that we are up to 230 per week. We have many who come and many people who come and pick them up for others and then deliver them to them because they can't get out. So it's been very successful. But now that we're through our pandemic, the state of California and the Office on Aging has decided that the grab and go needs to go away and congregate meals need to come back. The congregate meals we had here, by the time, just before COVID, we probably had 10 to 15. So City Manager Coble and I met with FSA nutrition staff, 3 or 4 times. And this actually, I guess, was supposed to go into effect July 1, and we were kind of extended until another 6 months. So by January 1, we're supposed to be back to congregate meals here. I can speak for Will and myself. I think when we don't really agree with that, we feel like we're being strong-armed. We have a great program that's working. We're serving, 230 people. And we're going to take that away and maybe serve 10 in a congregate setting. So we wanted to bring this to you so that you could have an idea of what's happening, so that we can figure out what it is we want to do here for our city and for our residents. We have met with FSA again, and he is supposed to be getting me some information regarding companies that will do grab-and-go type meals, and then also I guess there's grant funding available here and there, so if we can figure out grants and getting money to help assist with those, that's kind of the way that we would like to go. And then also next week we do have a meeting with somebody from the Office on Aging in Riverside County, and she's going to provide us with some options and things that we can do. So just wanted to give you that update. I don't know if Will wanted to add something.
Yeah, a couple of things. One of the things that FSA told us was that You know, they see the congregate meals as a way to draw seniors in to then come in and learn about the programs at the senior center and use it as a catalyst for the programming that we have. But our experience has been, it's been actually the opposite. Our programming has always been strong. Obviously, the pandemic put an end to that for a while, but now they're back, and our programs are doing very well once again. And the meals were kind of a secondary thing that they found out that we happen to have, you know, as a result of them attending our programs. And the state has basically told FSA that, well, the reason we want to do the congregate meals so that we get seniors out and about and get them socializing and so interested in the programs and things like that. So, you know, if it's for the purposes of trying to gather more people, it's not meeting its goal. And obviously, if it's the goal is then to provide nutrition, obviously the grab-and-go meals have been much more successful in that realm as well. So from a public policy standpoint, if, you know, we've heard two different things, the two different purposes of the program, and the congregate meals have not touched on either one. Whereas the grab-and-go meals have actually fulfilled both, because people do come and get the grab-and-go meals, they find out about the programs we have here, and then they come attend some of those as well. So we feel that the program we have in place today, COVID actually kind of drove us in that direction, but it's actually created something that's been wildly successful for our city and has really checked both boxes of what the whole purpose of the program is supposed to be. So that's the thing that I've shared with our county supervisor's office. I think that that's also a conversation we need to have with Senator Ochoa Bogue. You know, she'll be here next week for her town hall meeting, and that might be certainly a subject to bring up, because I know that's something that she cares very much about, and I think that's something that she would be in our corner on and be an advocate for the city. So I think those are different avenues we can also use, because you know, the staff from the supervisor's office, one of the staffers really shared a similar experience in places that she's worked, has seen the same thing where the grab-and-go meals are much more successful than the congregate meals. So, you know, they certainly understand it, they get it, and so hopefully we'll be able to make some headwind with that, but that's where we're at now, so.
So once we talk with the Office on Aging next week and get a little more information, then we can bring back to you maybe some more options and things that you can make some decisions on. But if there's direction you want us to go or an idea you have that you want us to pursue, we're open to that.
Questions?
I just want a clarification. So the congregate meals are once a week. The ones in person would be every day, Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday. I can't, it's been so long.
The congregate meals would be Monday through Monday through Friday, because they're open here on Fridays. So Monday through Friday here, 11 or noon, something like that. So they could come every day for that. The grab and go is Wednesday. Every Wednesday they come and pick up their week's worth of meals.
And so I just wanted also for clarification, when we first signed up with FSA, they basically just lease the space from us, but it's their program.
They use
Yes.
the space, yeah.
Yes.
And we pay them, they're a contractor for us.
They are a contract to run the senior center on a day-to-day basis, but the funding for the nutrition program is through the Office on Aging.
Right.
Anybody else?
So the idea then is we're going to explore funding options moving forward and see what we can get as far as grants or maybe local.
Yeah, that, and we're going to see when we talk to the Office on Aging next week.
Okay.
What their ideas are, what options they have, and maybe which way we can go.
So nothing needs to be decided tonight. This is
No,
just for
yeah,
our
just-
information,
yeah.
and we'll make decision in the coming weeks maybe
Yep.
on this.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
some
January
ideas, but I'll
1,
prep.
January 1 is when the congregations are supposed to start and the others go away. So we got to figure out what we're doing.
Okay, well, it's if push for, you know, what you guys want. It's definitely, it's a working thing that's been going well, and more people benefit from it, even though it, you know, you don't, you know, it isn't just our community. People are coming from Banning even, you know, but people they're getting nutritional benefits for it, so, you know, there's, try and help out everybody we can, and if we can get some funds for it, go for it.
think it would be interesting to track maybe residency. I don't know if there's a way to do that. I would just be curious to see where exactly people are coming from to get these meals, and maybe
Yeah, and
have
I
some
can
of
get
that
a better
data.
count from Lisa, our nutrition
Okay.
staff.
So that is being tracked?
Yeah,
they Okay. have
an intake form
Yeah.
that they collect for people that are getting the meals. There are people that are getting the meals, we're tracking that, so, yes,
Okay.
we probably can get that information from them. Yeah.
Thank you.
And did I read, what did you say? It was like $25 a week?
That,
For a
yeah,
week's
that was during
worth of-
COVID. That was during COVID when they had funding from
Okay.
the state. So I think they cost more than that, but that was what was needed to make up the difference with
Oh.
in $25. Yeah. Now probably not. It's probably more, but
And do
we just have to see what's
What
out
was
there.
the number that we needed to continue the program?
If we based it on the $25 a week, and we're talking about 200, let's just say it's 200, just for easy math. If it's purely through the city alone, probably the total probably is about $300,000. So it's a significant amount of money,
Yeah.
which is, I think, where it becomes more important to see where people are coming from. And that's obviously an option for council to explore if we're using Calamasa general fund money, or at least partially. Maybe you want to, have first dibs for Calamasa residents. That's always an option that we can explore. These are the kinds of conversations that we want to have, so that we can, when we talk to them, we know kind of what to ask, what we want to do. And to answer your question, Mr. Mayor, we want what's most successful for our community. That's really our goal as staff.
Yeah.
And there are, Ukaipa Senior Center is also, FSA Nutrition also runs theirs, and they do the congregate meals over there. So, I mean, I believe if it came down to somebody just really wanting to have congregate, they would have that option to go to Ukaipa if they wanted
Yeah,
to
I'd
do
be
so.
interested to see if the Banning, Beaumont, Ukaipa, if any of them had a similar program where they were feeding people.
I believe FSA, when we met the other day, didn't he say that they're starting one, they were just starting one in Beaumont, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that's
Very soon.
correct, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and that might be something too, that maybe we can, pool resources, and one place is for congregate, one place is for grab and go, and if we can kind of pull funds together to make the stretch the program out that way, that's also an option too. So, because, Ukaipa's using FSA, Beaumont's using FSA, so if we're all using the same provider, maybe there's a way to work together on that too.
Okay, we'll go ahead and file it and play with it.
I was going to add, I'm sorry, just one
Yeah.
comment to it, but I think overall, trying to explore the alternate revenue resources that are available to fund it, obviously be the number one thing to do, but if it came to be where none of that stuff was going to be available and we're trying to explore options on our own, I just would like to see maybe some tighter parameters, just seeing where some of these are going, like from our report, where these are going to, the meals are going to different cities and different counties.
Yep.
So maybe if we could identify some parameters that we could put in place, to kind of limit that and benefit our residents more, if we were going to try to figure out, so that number of 300,000 would go down a lot more, and
Sure.
put some tighter rules around it to where it would still benefit everybody, but it was a little more reasonable, something that we could actually handle,
Right.
do ourselves.
Well, can I ask one more question?
Yes.
How does the food get here? We have the-
FSA has staff who pick it up from, I believe they're cooked and put together somewhere in Long Beach, and they're brought to a couple of warehouses, one in Fontana area, one in Riverside, and they're taken to the appropriate counties, and then they bring, FSA picks them up, and FSA has a van where they bring them here, typically on Tuesdays, and Mondays or Tuesdays, yeah, and then staff here puts those together and gets them ready for Wednesday.
Now, one more question, sorry. Smiles for Seniors, didn't they do that? Deliver
No.
food? No, they didn't do that? Maybe I misunderstood something, but I
Oh,
thought
they offer programs for people that can't make their power bills or
I-
things like that.
I think, though, in the past, being here as long as I have, I do think there were some Smiles for Senior volunteers who did come and help
with
Pass
Meals
out
on Wheels and
meals.
pass out meals.
Yeah, well, they
yeah,
do
in the
it
years past.
for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. You know, and it's usually assisted living homes and things like that. I know I met with them today, and that's yeah, they're doing oh, I forget how many people in
Christmas
Yucaipa.
stocking.
No, well, for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but right now it's people are watching their bucks and they aren't collecting as much as they want, and then they worked hard on a program to get funding, and then whoever decides the funding, you know, I mean, they got seven or 8 million to play with. They weren't offered anything, and they worked on it for a year. You know, so little upset, but no, we always donate to them. I really like helping them because they work hard for what they do.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is one other thing too. I think when we're talking about the meals that are the congregate meals, obviously, for those that can't leave their homes, that have the inability to do so, there's still programs for meal delivery. So even irrespective of what happens with Grab and Go, those type of programs would still be available. Too.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify that.
Okay. We want to move on to item number 9 then.
Yes, so item number 9 is our first look at our cost allocation plan and user fee study. This is the reason that our agenda packet is so thick this time around. And so the city back in January, or in December of 22 actually, issued a request for proposals for a consultant to provide the service of updating our cost allocation plan and looking at our user fees. And in January, the council awarded a contract to Matrix Consulting Group. And so Kushbu Engel from Matrix is here to give the presentation tonight, and she'll go over both the cost allocation plan and user fee study. And again, tonight, we're not asking the council to adopt anything. This is just kind of your first look at it. And so after the presentation, we can talk about how we want to talk about this. There's a lot to digest with this. So Kushbu, if you want to come up to the podium for the presentation.
Okay. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Like Will said, I'm Kushbu Engel from Matrix Consulting Group, and we just wanted to give you a presentation tonight on the lovely reports that are in your agenda packet for the cost allocation plan and fee study. So what we wanted to go over tonight was, kind of what the scope of services were, and then start diving deep into the results for each of the reports. So specifically the cost allocation plans, and then kind of diving deeper into the fee study. So looking at what's the purpose of a fee study, what methodology we utilize, what are the overall results, and then kind of the next steps and considerations for you all. So just a reminder, as Will said, there were 2 main scopes of services that we looked at, a cost allocation plan and a user fee study. For the cost allocation plan, we actually did 2 different types of plans. The first one is a full cost plan, and the purpose of doing something called a full cost allocation plan is to look at the indirect support services within an organization or within a jurisdiction. So it looks at things like city council, city attorney, HR, finance, city clerk. So all of these services and departments that primarily are internal facing, so they're servicing other employees or contractual staff. They're less about servicing the public compared to like fire or public works. So it takes all of those service areas and it determines, what are those internal support functions and support that you're providing, and it determines based on tangible metrics like budget, number of transaction amounts, number of employees. So it looks at all of these different metrics that are relatable to the service, number of agenda items, things like that, and allocates those support to the different funds and departments that benefit from that service. The reason why a lot of jurisdictions will do this plan is it allows you kind of 2 things. One, it gives you an idea of what is your overall indirect cost as an agency, so you understand what's the full cost of providing services. The second layer, feeds into the fee study. So when we're looking at, what is the building permit, or what is the planning application, we're not only talking about the direct staff time associated with processing those applications, but we're also focusing on the indirect support. So as council, you guys review planning applications. As the city attorney's office, they review that. HR, provides support in hiring staff. So we want to make sure when we're capturing the full cost of those services. So that's what the purpose of the full cost plan is. The other cost allocation plan that we have attached in the agenda packet for you all is something called an OMB compliant cost allocation plan. And OMB stands for the Federal Office of Management and Budget. And what the purpose of that cost allocation plan is, it allows jurisdictions to recover indirect costs, specifically that are grant related. So the last item that you all were talking about is if you did go out and get grants for certain projects or certain components, you can not only build direct cost recovery, so get the full grant amount, but you can also allocate indirect costs to that grant and recover the portion of staff's time to manage that grant. So the purpose of that plan is to allow the city to have an understanding, again, of what is their indirect costs specific for grant-related projects and assumptions. So those are kind of the two cost allocation plan study. They are separate from the fee study, but the results of one does feed into the other. So they are connected from that purpose. You will also see that the cost allocation plan reports are several hundred pages long. We allocate to all funds and departments, regardless of their ability to afford those charges, because what we want to do is be fair, because they are receiving that support. It doesn't mean that now the city is going to go out and start charging all of those funds and start charging them that amount that's in the cost allocation plan. It's just a way for the city to understand what is that true indirect cost associated with those services. Kind of moving on, kind of big picture, the second scope was looking at the fee study. And the purpose of a fee study is, again, to determine, what is the true cost of providing the different fee-related services within a jurisdiction. So in the state of California, there are also some lovely propositions and laws that require jurisdictions to identify and document what is that full cost or maximum justifiable fee. So a lot of times we have to do these fee studies to make sure, again, that you're in compliance with those regulations. So talking a little bit more about the cost allocation plan. So specifically for the full cost allocation plan, like I mentioned, one of the major components is calculating an indirect cost rate. Currently, the city charges a 10% indirect cost rate. So when applicants are applying for planning applications that are real-time billing or deposits, they not only pay the deposit amount and they pay for staff time on it, but they pay a 10% indirect rate. Through this cost plan, we determined that actually the full cost of that indirect rate is closer to 25%. What that means is that takes into account all of the other administrative functions that, again, oversee those deposit-related applications. Those are large planning projects. They take several months. They involve Will, they involve Celeste, they involve Darlene, they involve all of these different city staff that are not directly billing to that application. So allowing kind of that indirect rate, you're allowed to kind of recover the portion of their costs. As a reference point, jurisdictions around you guys charge between 10 to 25%. So right now you're kind of right in that range where you're currently at 10%, which is kind of the de minimis rate, for lack of a better term, and 25% is kind of the highest end that we usually see for that type of indirect rate. Moving on to the fee study. Let's see if I can stop moving. The city last conducted a fee study in 2014, so the current rates are based off of kind of that 2014 fee study. Typically, it's considered a best practice to review these studies and conduct them every 3 to 5 years. The reason that you want to do them that often is because usually in that time frame, there's been enough changes in a jurisdiction, there's been new staff, in-house, contracted, different types of processes, and so you want to make sure that you're charging your fees appropriately. The focus of the current study was all citywide fees for service, and it did also include a comparative analysis. So again, focusing on why we do these fee studies, one of the big things is looking at streamlining your fee structure. So like I said, when the city last did this fee study, it was approximately almost 10 years ago. A lot has changed in the last 10 years. So we want to make sure that the services on the fee schedule are still appropriate and still reflective of all the services that you all are providing. So we went through and sat with each of the different departments, talked through them, you know, hey, do you still do this fee like line by line on the fee schedule? Because again, we want to make sure that there's great transparency on what those fees are that are being assessed, and that not only does city staff who's administering the fee schedule understand, but if there's questions and concerns from the public on what are these line items, what do they mean, we're able to incorporate that in this analysis. The other components we looked at is looking at the time component of how long it takes to provide the service. I'll talk about this a little bit more in depth, but just kind of the introduction of the concept is that when we talked with city staff and contractual staff, we wanted to make sure that as we were calculating the full cost of the service, we were looking at, you know, what is the average time that it takes to provide that service. So we don't want to look at the most complex project you've ever done. We also don't want to look at the simplest project you ever have done. We want to look at, you know, what is that reasonable time that it takes to provide this service. We also looked at calculating fully burdened hourly rates. So we looked at salaries, benefits, productive working hours. We also looked at, you know, any internal departmental overhead, so any, you know, vehicle costs, things like that. You need your vehicles to go out, do the inspections, building all of those costs in, but we also included the citywide overhead, as we mentioned, from that full cost allocation plan. The other components of the fee study, we're looking at that comparative analysis. As we mentioned, you know, we all like to know, hey, what's our neighbor doing? You know, what are they charging for these different permits, for these different services? So that was the other component we looked at. So in the report, there are a handful of scenarios that were chosen for that comparison. And then the last two components are looking at compliance with Prop 218 and 26. So as we mentioned, those propositions require that basically you cannot charge more than it costs to provide a service. So we wanted to make sure that, again, we're giving the city that information of what is that maximum ceiling. And lastly, providing the city with kind of an updated, more streamlined fee schedule of what those services are. So diving deeper into the fee study, you know, what is the methodology? How do we calculate what we call the full cost? So like I mentioned, we look at that average staff time that's spent by each position within the city. So we spent, you know, numerous hours sitting in this room or sitting in the conference room next door with different city staff, the contractual staff, you know, everybody was super available, super helpful, very responsive, and talking with us on, you know, what is the time that it takes to provide these services. We didn't just have one conversation and say, yeah, this sounds great, let's, you know, run some numbers. We had multiple iterations with staff, multiple conversations. We've done these fee studies in many other jurisdictions, so we wanted to make sure, again, that from our perspective, we were doing a gut check so that there was not this overinflation of time, but also not this under-accounting of time, because generally sometimes people tend to, you know, they don't want to say they spend, you know, 4 hours doing something because it makes them sound inefficient, but we want to make sure that we're truly thinking about all the steps in the process, all the back and forth that it happens with the applicant. Once we figured out what that reasonable time is, kind of on a per line item basis, we then multiplied that time by that fully burdened rate. And it's specific to kind of the position that's providing that service. The reason we do that is because, again, we want to be fair as we're calculating the fee. So just because, you know, there is this very expensive position in the city, we don't want to set all our fees at, you know, Will's rate, as the city manager's rate. We want to make sure we're setting the fees at the appropriate position and person that's providing that service. And so once you take that time estimate, you multiply it by the hourly rate, and that's how you kind of get that full cost. So again, that represents that maximum justifiable fee. So it's your ceiling. You can't charge more than that number. So big picture, what does that mean? So when we look at the different service areas within the city, overall, right now, based on the information available, and these studies are a snapshot in time, the city is under recovering by approximately $112,000, or at a 91% cost recovery. We do want to make a caveat that, like I said, this is a snapshot in time. It doesn't include the fire prevention fees. So we do have numbers for fire on there, but that's only for the current workload that's tracked. It doesn't include all of the other services that fire currently provides, but there is no existing fee schedule for, so there's no mechanism for them to track that information. So there is that additional potential revenue. The other component that's not built in here is the administrative overhead rates. As we mentioned on a lot of planning applications, there is that 10% administrative rate. We calculated that rate at 25%. So again, what this represents is kind of that bare minimum deficit, you know, potentially, depending on what the council moves forward with, you would have the option to, you know, generate at least this much revenue, if not more. So when we're looking at user fees, what are some things to consider? So as we mentioned that, you know, these fees are maximum justifiable fee. And when we're looking at fees for service, we want to think about what are those services that we're providing. So when we look at kind of a tiered structure, there are certain services that are largely benefiting a community. So when we look at things like streets or parks or, you know, fire suppression, those are services that benefit all of your residents, all of your community members. Then there are other services that are kind of in between, you know, they benefit the community, but there's also an individual benefit involved. So things like recreation, right? I'm gonna go participate in this class, or I'm gonna go take this, you know, camp. And that allows you to kind of have some individual benefit, but there is also still a larger community benefit to providing those programs and services. So those are typically funded through a mixture of fees and taxes. And then the last category is kind of that very individualized benefit. So those are things like your development fees, your entitlements, your building permits, right? If I'm building a swimming pool in my backyard, I'm the only one benefiting from that swimming pool. You know, maybe I'll throw a block party and maybe my neighbors will benefit, but other than that, really, you know, somebody who lives 2 streets down is probably not benefiting from me building a pool in my backyard. So those are typically funded by user fees. So when we talk about that maximum justifiable fee, what we're trying to show is, again, that 100% full cost recovery. There are a handful of fees that will sometimes show that they are, you know, based on this new calculation, the city is technically overcharging. So it's not like across the board we're saying all fees need to be at that 100% cost recovery. It again gives the city that information that, hey, if there are any fees that you are over 100% cost recovery, you do need to bring those fees back down. We do also want to make note that there are certain fees on the fee schedule that are state or local or ordinance based. So obviously those would be unaffected unless you wanted to lobby to the state to change some of those fees. Other components is that, you know, anytime you set a fee at less than 100% cost recovery, basically that means you are providing a subsidy. That means that those services are still going to be paid for, because it's not like you're going to stop providing that service. So those services are still going to be paid for. They're just going to be paid for from a different funding source, which means that then those funding sources are unavailable for other activities. So it's an important thing to consider when you're looking at this and making those decisions and having those conversations on where and how you want to set fees. Having said all of this, there are certain fees that generally councils and jurisdictions do consider for lower cost recovery. So, you know, like we mentioned in the previous discussion, that there is certain fees where you don't want the fee to actually be cost prohibitive or barrier to entry for people. So you want to look at what are those fees, what are those services that are unique to the residents of Cali Mesa that would be affected by those areas. Some common ones that we see a lot are things like water heater permits or appeals, because again, we want to make sure that everybody's able to be in compliance with those regulations. They don't feel like the fee is too high and they're not able to pull those permits. So what were the results of all of this analysis? Kind of summarizing the fee study report in kind of major bullet points. The biggest change that we made to the fee schedule is converting the building fees specific to commercial, industrial, and multifamily from being based on the valuation, so the cost of construction of those projects, to being based on the occupancy, square footage, and construction type. The reason we went to that is that's very standardized across the building industry. There's an international code council that publishes, you know, these standards every year, technically every 6 months. So rather than being based on, you know, am I putting in granite in my kitchen versus am I putting in, you know, marble, it's being based on, you know, what is the work that's being done? What is it that we're looking at? So it's not based on, you know, my contractor charged me $500,000 to build this and I decided to build it and it was only $25,000. It's really based on what it is, the service that we're reviewing and inspecting. The other things we looked at, we're adding new fees for service. So we looked at adding new deposits for planning and engineering services that were previously missing, or streamlining existing deposits so that you would only pay one deposit rather than paying one deposit to planning, one deposit to engineering. We also looked at adding landscaping fees because again, this is a service that the city is providing, but currently no mechanism for recovery. We did create a brand new fire prevention fee schedule. Since the last time the city did the fee study, fire was not part of the city, so there was no fire prevention fee schedule that existed. So now there's a brand new comprehensive fire prevention fee schedule. And then the last two things we did is we looked at the technology and general plan maintenance fee, because again, we wanted to, in this new age, technology is ever evolving, and it's important for the city to start setting aside funding for replacing those technological systems in the future. And same thing, the general plan fee is a less commonly known fee, but it's for the city to help recover costs and set aside funding for long-range planning activities. As your city continues to grow, there are going to be changes, and you want to make sure that you're setting aside funding so you can determine, what is that community direction you want to take for your city to look like 5, 10, 15 years from now. From the comparative analysis, just kind of some big picture findings. Based on the comparative survey, surprisingly, a lot of jurisdictions around you have recently done a fee study or at least updated their fees. So, it is important for you guys to also, at a minimum, consider looking at your fees because it has been so long since you last looked at them. The new building fee schedule does help bring that fee structure and cost in alignment with other jurisdictions. So again, most of the jurisdictions in your area are charging the fees similarly based on square footage, occupancy, valuation type. Your current fees are generally lower. Again, your full cost is bringing them more in alignment with other jurisdictions. And then both the technology fee, the general plan fee, and credit card surcharges, while the amounts are kind of different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, they are still fees that are being more commonly assessed by other jurisdictions. And with that, I will stop talking and ask you guys to ask your questions.
Well, and I just want to add a couple of things. Thank you, Kushbu. On the couple of things to think about. A lot of jurisdictions have updated their fees because I think a lot of that was a result of COVID. After COVID hit, there was a lot of uncertainty related to governmental revenues and what the impact was going to be. And I think it really made cities look inward as far as, are we appropriately charging for specific services that are, that give specific benefit? And so I think that there was kind of a hesitancy to do that, and so cities tended not to update their fees. But I think post-COVID, a lot of them have kind of reassessed that and looked at, okay, well, for services we're providing for individual benefit, we should probably recover those costs so that we can maximize our, what we call indirect revenues, our tax revenues, to be used for more generalized services. So kind of match those up more. On the technology fee, Kushbu talked about replacing technology. In our case, it's actually just going to be adding technology because in a lot of cases we don't have the software in place for some of these things. And so those are things that we're exploring as well. And I did want to add that we're looking at a long time window for adopting the fees. We're looking at actually a July 1, 2024 effective date. And that gives us a long runway and window to analyze these things, make sure that the council fully understands and is comfortable with what we're moving forward with, and also allows us to have additional discussions if the council should choose to do so. But it will also allow staff time to implement these fees because there are new fees, especially with fire prevention. We have to actually implement the systems and procedures and processes that it's going to take to actually administer these fees efficiently. So that will take us some time. So for all those reasons, we're going to recommend a July 1, 2024 effective date for whatever the council ultimately will to decide to adopt. So I just wanted to add those few comments. And of course, I'm available to answer questions. Kushbu and Celeste are all available to answer questions you may have.
Is there any questions right now?
Yes.
Wendy?
On page 388, I don't know if you have this in front of you. They talk table 31, ranking of jurisdictions by budget. Do we really have a $29 million budget?
For all of our funds, yes. That's all funds included.
It just seemed kind of off because Ukaipa is like 5 times bigger than us, and they don't have 5 times the budget.
Yeah, and sometimes it's also has to do with disclosure and budget presentation. So
And
what
then
we have for
Canyon Lake,
Ukaipa may not be fully all there, because I know that I want to say that their general fund is probably, pretty close to that. And I don't want to say too much, but reading some of their budget documents from the past, it was a little bit difficult to kind of figure out what was happening.
Yeah,
So
I think
that
the
could have
numbers
some, that
just
could
seemed
contribute
a
to it
little
too.
bit off to me, so
Yeah.
I was thinking, wow, this is a big difference here. I mean, because Canyon Lake's not that much bigger than us, really. And their budget's a lot smaller.
Yeah, and they're fully built out too, so they don't have the CFDs and they don't have a lot of the activity that we have. A lot of our budget is related to a lot of transportation. So you look at our Fund 36, for example, which is our transportation diff. There's a lot of activity related to all of our transportation projects that is running through there. That will actually drive up the budget amount as well, that Canyon Lake doesn't have.
I had a few questions, but you want to kind of move to everybody else, or
Yeah, it's,
give everybody else?
I'd like to get the generics done here, and I would like to ask the council to agree to having another meeting as a study group on say a Monday or something like that, earlier in the day, so everybody's fresh and they have a chance to look at this. And it's, that's what I was going to propose to you guys. So, Linda, you had something you wanted to comment on?
I can make this work. Here. Thank you. My only comment was, this was a lot of work, but I think once we've established, when we finalize our fees, this is only going to help us at budget time. It's going to allow us to plan better for the things that we don't have in our city and make sure that we're spending the appropriate amount of money in the appropriate places. So while this seems like a lot of work, it is, but I think in the long run, it's going to help us budget better. And so I think this is a great thing. It'll put us in line, like it's been said, that we're within, similar jurisdictions. Mainly for us, it's going to be clearer for us to identify where we have money, where we need money, and that we're doing, when it comes to audit time, that we're in compliance. I think this is a good tool.
I think another thing that does help having a better, more comprehensive fee schedule, it does help end users as well, because it helps them budget for their projects.
That's the big thing.
Rather than having to have it be based on a deposit, there's not a lot of certainty there. If they know the fee for, these are the fees that these are the permits that they need for their project, and they cost X, Y, and Z, it's a lot more straightforward. They can give better quotes to their customers. So for the users themselves, it actually is a lot more helpful in that regard too.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment too, Mayor. I think it's important to emphasize in this, because I think most of us, what I heard so far, are in agreement with the objective here, right? But I want the residents to know that this is not about charging more money so that the city can profit or benefit off of our residents, because that would clearly be illegal. We're not trying to do that. It's not the objective by this. It is just to recoup costs, the full cost of doing business and of services, so that we can redirect those funds elsewhere, right? And so a lot of work needs to be done in the city, as many residents know, from our pavement management and so forth. And so by gathering more funds, right, recouping more funds, the city can then reallocate these in other important ways. So I just think that's been said a few times, but just to want to emphasize that point. But to your point, Mayor, I think it would be a good idea to set aside an afternoon or something to talk about the specific fees, right? Maybe get into the weeds a little bit more on the details of this, because there is a lot of fees, right,
Well,
that are being modified. And
You know, this group has given a very good presentation on how it works and what it does. And it's, now it's up to us to, look at the nuts and bolts and see what you want to do.
right.
And rather than take, you know, I'm sure the audience doesn't want to listen to us till midnight, so.
Well, to do justice, it may take a while to go through line by line the different fees.
Well, we don't necessarily have to go through line by line, just, you know, it's just like all the fire stuff, there's a gob of stuff there that, you know,
Mhm.
they've gone through on what their costs are,
Sure.
and, you know, this is what it's gonna have to be to break even,
Correct.
you know, so. But there are a lot of things that, I was just in a lot splits and things like that, I looked at that, and, oh, that's what it would cost me, huh? Yeah. I gotta do it now.
And that is a good point too. That is another thing also with having this long lead time for approving the new fee schedule. If people do have work that they want to get done before it's implemented, obviously they can get in line and do it before the fees are implemented.
Is that a hard number? I mean, hard date, July?
We could, I mean, obviously we can do whatever the council would like us to do, but I think that, you know, doing it sooner may be difficult just because of trying to get the processes and procedures in place. One of the things that staff has been doing is we've been reviewing different permit software applications, because right now we're doing everything by email and by Excel spreadsheet, very inefficient, and so there are programs that can allow us to manage our workflow and also allow an applicant to see exactly where their permit is in the process as well. So it's better for the end user, it's better for staff, makes us more effective, and we get a better idea of where things are. So, and it's going to take time to implement that, and then once we implement that, then we got to then load our fee schedule into that. So, with all those different steps.
No, but I was just saying, if we needed to, we could push it.
If we needed to push it, certainly we could do that. Certainly we could go longer. Absolutely, yes.
May I ask two just methodological questions? These, I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but just so I understand. I think I remember in a previous presentation I was talking about there, and you mentioned this as well, that there's sort of a presumption of tech, like in these fees, right? We're assuming that technology is being utilized in these services, and so that's kind of built in almost everywhere. Is that right?
Yes and no. So yes, in the sense that the technology fee, the surcharge would
Yeah.
be applied to all of the different permits and applications that would utilize that technology. But like when we're talking about the time that it takes to provide the service, we didn't necessarily take into account like the brand new permitting system that Will is talking about. We wanted to make sure that it reflects how staff are currently kind of providing those services, because we don't want to, you know, artificially deflate that time if, you know, it's going to take you 2-3 years to kind of get to that level. So we want to make sure it's reflective of your current service levels. But the technology fee component, by starting to collect that piece on all of the different applications that would be applicable to it, the city can then help kind of recoup those costs and set aside those funds for future upgrades and replacements to that technology system. But again, it would be proportional to the level of application. So that's why it's a percentage rather than a flat fee. So if you're pulling like a $1,000 permit, your fee is going to be very different than if you're pulling a $50 permit, because again, we want to make sure we're not artificially burdening that cost.
I think that answers my question. I guess I was wanting to know the full cost of providing services. It seems like technology is going to be utilized at almost every step, right? Or in every service that we provide at some point. And so I think it would be a presumption that we can make, a safe one, that it should be a part of the calculus for almost everything we do. But we can talk about that another time, if you understand what I'm saying, right? And maybe I'm missing something. But
I think what we're talking about with having that surcharge,
Right.
it does get added into all the,
It gets-
you know, on all of them. So, yeah, so
Yes,
we
sir.
are collecting on that so that they are paying their proportional share of providing that. Because yes,
Right.
I mean, everything that we do these days now does involve a, you know, some semblance of technology that's utilized for that. And so, Obviously, I think the permits, the building permits are the ones that are gonna probably produce more revenue, and therefore more is gonna go, we're gonna produce more revenue from that function, which is also gonna produce more technology fee revenue,
Right.
right? So, but we know though that those are gonna be costs that we're gonna be incurring in the future.
Correct.
And that's why it's also important to do this, to be regular on this exercise too. So we have components in there to raise the fees annually, or at least have the ability to raise fees annually. That still will be at council discretion on an annual
Right.
basis. But we do have a mechanism built in to be able to do that. But then, every 3 to 5 years, we should be looking at the fee study as a whole. Because as we grow, we're gonna, staff changes, technology changes, processes change, there's maybe regulatory things that happen. And so it's gonna be important for us to review those things, because we may find better ways to do things, more efficient ways to do things. So we'll be able to adjust the fees that way as well. So, but the technology will always play a part of
Part
that.
of that.
Yeah.
And just a question, one more question, and then I'll be done here. With the fee calculation methodology, it's just part of curiosity here. I want to understand how you do that. And I assume the full burden hourly rate, as you mentioned, that takes into consideration the average hourly rate of the staff members who are working on the project, right? So for example, if we had the city manager, if we had a city engineer and public, a planning department working on something, you would kind of take all three of those and average that, or would you take just walk me through that, like maybe the calculus, how that's done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's more based on kind of how much time is spent by each position. So that's why we kind of do it at that positional level. So we would start with, in this example, if Will would only spend an hour, the fully burdened rate would only incorporate an hour of Will's time. And if the engineer associate spent, 5 hours, the fee would be more kind of skewed towards 5 hours of the associate engineer's rate and only 1 hour towards Will's rate. So the rate is specific to kind of each position and what the cost is to the city for that particular position. So that we're not overinflating the cost. Because in that situation, if we blended the rate, it would be too high because Will's rate would be much higher than the associate engineer's rate.
Well, and I do also want to point out too that, remember, I'm an overhead position, right? So, you'd be using direct hours for, the associate engineer, the kind of the more operating department, what we would call the operating departments, public works, engineering, planning. And then my rates built into that 25%, that the indirect cost that goes into that. So,
Thank you.
So should we set a date, or?
Well, we can discuss that. We have until probably after the first of the year.
yeah, with the holidays coming up,
And I would recommend, like a Monday, that there's no council meeting or planning commission meeting. And it would help, one of our council members, I don't know about Jeff, how your Mondays are set up.
I can
Okay.
make an exception. Yeah.
so if we're looking at, that would leave us with the fourth Monday of the month, because we have first and third for council, second for planning. So we can look at the fourth Monday.
Towards the end of the month when
in
we've got an
Jan-
extra day.
Yeah.
Now January has five.
Do we have five?
Mondays.
Okay, so we have two options then. We have the
Yeah.
22nd and the 29th.
Which one is MLK weekend though?
That's a great question.
Then. So that's the 15th then of January. So yeah, so either the 22nd or the 29th are possible options.
Yeah.
Okay, we can think about it.
Okay.
I'll talk with you individually, and we'll figure
And
out what
I
works
really
out.
want to thank you for your presentation.
Of course, you guys are very welcome. Thank you.
Mayor, just for the benefit of the public, this will be a properly noticed meeting, so the
Yeah,
the
it's
public
open to
will know
everybody, yeah.
and can participate in that process.
I'm sorry.
It's a study session.
Yeah.
Also, there is one thing I think we actually forgot to mention, that we did previously meet with the Finance Committee to discuss this item. So just wanted to disclose that, which consists of Mayor Davis and Councilmember Cervantes. So we did meet with them, and we had this kind of a similar discussion with the committee, so just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay. Mayor and council members reporting of county and regional meetings and conferences. Linda?
Thank you. Yes, on November 8th, I attended an RCTC meeting where they had a presentation on SCAG SoCal 2024 draft plan. It was also done by SCAG on November 8th. And on the 16th, RTA had their executive committee meeting and board meeting. And then I also attended the chamber breakfast, the holiday dinner, and I just wanted to share something with us regarding veterans. The National Cemetery, Riverside National Cemetery, is in the process of locating a location for a new monument, and that monument is going to acknowledge the Native American, Asian Pacific, Alaskan, and indigent, I think it's the right word, veterans who have not been, all their contributions over the years, and so that monument will be added to the cemetery, so that will be coming up in the future where that's going to be located. So just something for everybody to know that. And then I just wanted to remind everyone that on the 30th of November, Senator Rosalisa Bogue will have her town hall meeting here. And on December 8th, I provided to our city clerk and I gave the mayor an invitation. RTA is having a ribbon cutting for their Vine Street hub, which is similar to San Bernardino's hub, where it links all different bus lines and Metrolink and Amtrak. We're going to have that in Riverside near the Mission Inn, where the current Metrolink station is. That's a big deal. It's a lot of it's advantageous for all travelers, for all modes of travel, Metrolink buses and so on. So that's a very important thing and very important for our community, all the communities, because we all travel outside the city. So that's going to be on December 8th. And some of the partners are Caltrans, RCTC, FTA, WRCOG, Eastside Coalition, and California Strategic Growth Council. So it's got a lot of support, and it's going to do a lot of good for the community. Thank you.
John?
I was not required to attend any meetings, but I'll just wish everybody a happy and safe Thanksgiving.
Very good. Wendy?
I did not have a WRCOG meeting to attend. I did attend the senior center fall ball, which was very nice. It was catered by the Royal. Actually had a turkey dinner, and it was real nice. We do have a lot of things coming up, so I hope to see you guys at the tree lighting December 1st and our parade December 2nd. And I think that's all we have. Oh, and Rosalisi's
On the 30th, yeah.
on the 30th of this month. So.
Jeff?
Just briefly, I received an email from Ann Mayer just giving us an update on a couple grants for RCA. And this is kind of big news for RCA. They were awarded $16 million in state funding and federal grant funding. So from the Wildlife Conservation Board and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. So between those two agencies, $16 million to purchase approximately 1,300 acres of conservation lands. Those lands are going to be 640 acres in the Badlands between the San Jacinto Valley and San Bernardino National Forest, and 670 acres of land in Bee Canyon property located adjacent to the 91 freeway, under crossing in Corona. So.
Thank you. I just want to remind everybody that the holidays are here and people are crazy. So be careful on the highways and look out for your drunk drivers, and enjoy your holiday. Will?
Just a reminder for local businesses that want to sign up for we have some marketing materials now for the Shop Calamasa digital gift card program. So any businesses that would like to participate in that, I can provide that information. The Chamber of Commerce also has the information. So reach out to them, and Heather, I can I'll give you my card. I'll get you that information. So you can be one of our supporters. I appreciate that. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay. And I will, what do you got there, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, Mayor, we have two closed sessions listed on the agenda. One is pursuant to Government Code Section 549-56.8. It's a conference with the city's real property negotiators. And item number 2 is the public employee performance evaluation for the city manager.
Thank you. Well, with that, we will adjourn to the closed session. And thank you very much for attending.